Hello everyone, my name is Gonzalo Sofio. I am the e-learning technical assistant of Transplant Child, and in this webinar I'm going to show you some general considerations to take into account when building a registry. So we're going to be answering these 4 questions. What is a registry? What is it useful for? What do we need to know to be able to build a registry? And how can we make it fair? So first of all, what is a registry? Well, here we have some of the general characteristics that a registry must have. It is an organized information system. It has an observational study design. It must collect uniform data, evaluate defined outcomes in a specific population and with determined purposes or aims. And take into account that a registry is not a database. A registry contains a database, but it's not a database, it's much more than it. So what are the main functions of a registry? Well, registries are key resources that can increase timely and accurate diagnosis, can improve patients management, tailor treatments, facilitate clinical trials, support healthcare planning, and speed up research. So, these are some of the steps that you need to follow to build a registry. The first of all is always to identify the purpose or the aim. So, what you want to get by building a registry? What is the purpose? Then you have to establish a governance, that is the team that will be in charge of make the registry function, and then assess the sustainability. So you need to make a plan so that the registry doesn't disappear and is not empty. So the registry actually works in the following years. And last of all, you need to go through the process of verification of your registry, and we will explain this later. Okay, so as we said, one of the first things to do is to establish the purpose of the registry. So you need to wonder, why am I building this registry? What do I want to get with it? So for example, I want to promote research in a determined condition, or I want to determine what is causing a disease in a specific set of population, etc. So you have to provide the direction of the registry, where it is aimed to, define these aims, as the examples I said, preview the impact it may have, because it's pointless to make a registry if it's not going to have any impact, and consider the adaptability so that the registry can survive in time, because there are many changes in science, medicine, there can be changes in the personnel working in the registry, and all of that must be previewed in order to for the registry to have a proper functioning. After that, it is necessary to establish the governance of the registry. Governance is the system of administration and supervision through which research is managed, participants and staff are covered, and accountability is assured. And why is governance important? A good governance ensures integrity in research through the accountability, transparency, and responsibility. So, governance helps at the time of decision making, oversight, and risk management in every field, like ethical, operational, scientific, conflict resolution, etc. That's why it is necessary to establish a governance team. So here we have some governance practice or recommendations. That is, establish an organizational chart, identify clear roles and responsibilities for each of the employees, make a good engagement with the stakeholders so that they are interested in your registry and can even collaborate in it, and establish determined policies and procedures. For example, a procedure for data sharing with other registries. It must be clearly established how to do it. And here we have an example of the governance of a registry. We have divided it in 3 teams: management, steering committee, and stakeholders. This should always be like this. These 3 teams must always exist. And then each team has different functions. The management team is the structure by which the registry is directed and managed. The steering committee guides the management team in the conduct of the registry. and the stakeholders are the people interested in the registry. So in this example, in the management team, we have project managers, clinicians, and researchers. In the steering committee, we have IT technicals, statisticians, lawyers, epidemiologists. As you can see, it's a very multidisciplinary team because they are the experts in the determined area of the registry, and that's why they help the management team, that are the leaders, to guide the registry with their opinions. And the stakeholders, that are the people that may be interested. We can have clinicians, researchers, patients, industry, depending on the aim of the registry. So what are the key governance messages to take into account? Governance involves administration and supervision. It is a shared responsibility. It is not enough with one person. It assures research integrity through the accountability and transparency. The ethical principles must never be compromised, and it is necessary to establish policies and standard operative procedures. Then, the next step, as we stated, is to assure the sustainability of the registry. And for that, we need to go through 3 different phases. The first one is to define the budget that is going to be necessary for the registry, for its design, implementation, and maintenance. Then we need to explore the funding mechanisms. How are we going to get that budget? Well, it can proceed from many different origins. For example, from grants that can be private or from government, donors, fundraising, crowdsourcing, partnering with biopharma, or fees for access to registered data. There are many different ways. And last, we need to find a long-term funding stream to maintain the registry and maximize the investments in the long term. But to assure sustainability, it is not enough with just money and resources. We also need an efficient process of data collection and management. Because if a registry is accessible, but it is empty, it doesn't contain any data, it is worthless. So in order to promote the data to be introduced in our registry, we need to make this process efficient by limiting the data collected to only the necessary information, not any extra information that is not worth the effort. Adjust the frequency of collection of data so that no extra efforts are made, same, and use user-friendly tools and forms. If the clinician or the data manager or the user or the patient is going to introduce the data of a case in the registry and finds that the form, the website, the platform, whatever, is not user-friendly and it's difficult to make use of it, so probably that person is going to give up and is not going to introduce the data in the registry, and we do not want that. We want to promote participation. And finally, the last step that we mentioned is the verification of our registry. What does FAIR stand for? Well, if a registry is fair, it means that it is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So another way of saying it is that fairness is a measure of usage readiness. If a registry is fair, is that it is ready to be reused. I mean, other registries can access our data following our protocols of accessing our policies, but can access our data and reuse it, promoting communication and avoiding data duplication in different registries. So how can we make our registry more fair? We need to follow the 4 FAIR principles. The first one is the F, findability. Our registry must be identified and describe itself. And one way to do this is to register our registry in a registry of registries so that external registries can find ours. A, accessibility, describe its access rules and protocols so that external registries know what rules and protocols they need to comply with if they want to access our data. I, interoperability, describe its data element for analysis. it is important that the data contained in our registry is clearly described with rich metadata and identified with an identifier of any ontology, so that if an external registry wants to access our data, they know to which clinical parameter we are exactly referring to, and there is not confusion. And finally, R, reusability, describe its content origin, consent information, and usage licenses, so that at the moment of reusing our data, because they have been able to find the registry, access it, and know what data we have because they are interoperable, they know if there are special licenses or consent that they need to comply with in order to be able to reuse the data. Even though we mentioned 4 of the main steps and aspects necessary to build a registry, registries are much more complex, so there are more aspects that should be considered. For example, data quality. It is important that we are sure that we don't have duplicated and that we don't have empty data, that all our data is well collected and stored. But it is pointless to have all this data collected if we're not going to take advantage of it. So it is also necessary to pay attention to data exploitation. We need a statistical software or any tool that allows us to exploit our data and get to conclusions. In order to do this, we need a platform in order to collect our data and exploit it. A platform for our registry that must be developed or used any software existing that allows us to fulfill our functions. Also, we need to pay attention to the ethical issues and comply with the data protection and the general data protection regulation in Europe, because this is an important aspect that we need to protect patient data, because this is sensible data that we're going to have stored. So we're going to have to comply with all these laws. So let's summarize everything that we've learned through this webinar. What is a registry? A registry is an organized information system that uses observational study design, collects uniform data, specified outcomes in a defined population for predetermined purposes. Their functions are like promote research, facilitate clinical trials, etc. And remember that a registry is not a database. A registry contains a database, but it's not the same. What are the steps to build a registry? Well, we went through the 4 steps that are: set the purpose, establish a governance system, make a sustainability plan to assure the functioning of the registry in time, and go through the verification process of our registry to make it fair and ready to use. And then we mention other registry aspects that must be considered, like data quality, data exploitation, ethical issues, data protection, and the GDPR, etc. So the conclusion is that building a registry is not an easy task because they are very complex systems, and we need a full team working behind to make it work properly. And that was all. I hope that you enjoyed the video and learned a lot about how to build a registry. And if you have any suggestions or questions, just leave them in the comments box and I will be pleased to answer you all. Thank you.